out, and then I'm going to say officially welcome everybody on Facebook and around the world. You are now in the Zoom after show with your host, Joseph Jaffe, and his very special guest, Rich Mulholland. So come on down to bit.ly/Corona TV After Show, and let me just share my screen with you. And you can see what's up my nose. Never doing that again. That was a great tip. So no, but seriously, let me share my screen with you so we can go through those videos. I'm kidding. Well, you know what? Forget about what I want to say. Does anyone have a question for Rich? And first of all, before I turn it over to you, we have my sister who's joined us in the Zoom after show, first time. So I always think, like, what does it take to lure certain people? So it takes Rich Mulholland to lure my sister, because she's never come before. You know, it's been like 60 episodes. She was my first guest on the show. And anyway, so now you have to come. Now you have to come off mute and say hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Joe. What does it take for me to come on the Zoom after show? I would say just good timing, and yes, a very intriguing speaker. But I'm mostly intrigued about the bookshelf at the back, Rich.
What's the board games?
Yeah, it's board games. Let me see if I can take it over.
I mean, the amount of effort that must have gone into...
My wife said if I'm going to have boards here, she wanted to arrange them. So normally I would have arranged them by type, but like, you know, the categories. But she was like, no, it must look nice. So if you go to there, you can see, and they've all been kind of arranged by height. So they form a bit of a kind of sine wave thing going on. And then we've got an overflow in my office. We've got more. So these are more the ones I would reach for often, and they're in the cupboards everywhere and set around. And so honestly, up here, it's a work of art. My cat runs and sits up there. So he runs up the ladder while I'm doing talks all the time. Everyone's like, oh, there's Richard's cat. So that's amazing. Any questions about any specific games?
What? No, I think it's a work of art, honestly. Yeah. And I have actually got two questions for you.
Yes. Listen, Sharon, you do know I can mute you, right?
Yes. Unfortunately. So first of all, I wanted to know about your accent.
I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and I've lived in South Africa since I was 9. So I'm South African now. How's it, everybody? Hi.
Okay.
Nice to see you all.
Excellent.
Yeah, how's it? Y'all want to
How's it?
Yeah,
okay,
fine,
good. Because the bookshelf and the accent had me very distracted. But the main question I had is, I've done a lot of presenting also in my life, and now everything's gone virtual and digital. What I find very difficult is the ability to read the room. And I love to walk around the room and make eye contact. And that is so difficult now to hold everyone's attention.
Okay, so
do you have any tips or insight for that?
So the first thing I would say is let go of the idea of holding attention. Become a master at interrupting their distraction. Assume you keep on losing your audience and try find tools to bring them back. So, and this coincides with the other thing. So I keep the chat panel open if I present in Crowdcast or something the whole time. The first thing before I go on, one of my team walks in and does an intro. Hey, everybody, I just want to show you how the questions work. And they run a poll with them so that when I run a poll later, everybody knows what to do. And then they'll say something like, Richard says, please, he'll ask a question, just let me know where you are in the chat. And then they will start the chats going and they'll start conversation. So we have some people that are branded missing link and some people whose sole job there is to say that was a great point and drop some emojis and give the audience permission to engage. As speakers, we forget that we normally don't give audiences permission to engage. So we tell an audience just to sit there and listen. Now you got to tell them, guys, it's so hard to do this by myself. I'm stuck up here. I would love to hear your comments. Please, please, please interrupt me while I'm chatting. If you think what I've said is rubbish, say it in the chat and I'm going to get to that. And then be mindful enough to actually engage with them when they do. Wow, I see Seth had actually just posted it in there and he said a question about this. Seth, I've tried that. I love it. It's really cool. Thank you so much for the tip. I also dig Ferris Bueller, and then we carry on chatting and we engage like that. Mm-hmm. Then what I would do is I would say things like, I think it's such a stupid trick, but I'll say things, guys, this next slide is going to really I think, land with you why I'm talking about this and why I think this is so important. So now the podcast listeners, the people who are technically listening to your talk, but they're in another tab, they come back because they don't want to miss the next slide. Because people have FOMO. So interrupt their distraction. You've got to create attention gravity and just bring them back over to look at that stud. I've got the whole family here right now. What's up, Al?
Oh, no way.
It's very bizarre because we had my family chat about 20 minutes before our show, and we're all singing happy birthday to my son, and now I've got both siblings on, and my mother is watching Corona TV. So, you know, Rich, we're gonna get into 21 million views in a moment, but you know, I'm struggling just to get beyond 21, of which clearly 4 of them are my family, and one of them is Tintin. You know, I had to bring this out for you as well.
Nice.
So exactly. So Alan,
amazing.
Alan, thank you for recommending Rich. He was everything and more.
Awesome.
I was saying to Joseph that in my last meeting before lockdown, I saw you. I was having lunch, remember, Nick and Jason, and then we had that chat. I was like, you're literally the last person I saw before the apocalypse. So great to see you again.
I came in for like an elbow, and remember, he said, no, I don't want to do that. I was like, okay, it's something I did.
No, I think I did an elbow. I was down for elbows and feet. I think
no,
you came in
you
for
were good.
a kiss with tongue.
Nick wasn't. Yeah.
Yes. It's when you put your tongue in my ear that it got weird.
Awkward. Like the car ride we had together that time on the way back. Yeah.
So I got a text from Mark Uriah who said he said you're a great guy, and that you did their video presentation for his company years ago.
Yeah, we actually, Mark, when we started one of our businesses, 21 Tanks, Mark was actually one of the first guys to trust me with a cool little strategy session we ran for his team. I really enjoyed it. And then we did some video work for them for Missing Link. So that was great.
It's a small world.
And
all right,
I also worked with Steve as well, his cousin, I think, who's got a bunch of gyms around the US. Yeah.
All right, so I want to, we'll also open it up to see, you know, whether, you know, Jan and Bob, Steve, Seth have anything, Heidi, want to add anything? But I want you just to talk, if you wouldn't mind, because we didn't get to it, and I knew we wouldn't, because I knew the conversation would go, you know, we spoke about, you know, block your ears, Sharon, reverse masturbation, which, you know, I've been Googling it, you know, apparently you're linked to it now. So forever linked to it, Rich. But 21 million views. Talk a little bit about, you know, like the deconstruction or the dissection, what do they call it? The unpacking of that. And then when you did the follow-up, why, you know, why, as you said, it didn't live up to those expectations and some of those reasons.
So I had very little to do. This isn't my audience. There's an organization called Goalcast. I'll tell you the funny thing though, is it nearly didn't happen. I get this random connection on LinkedIn from this guy and says, hey, I've got one of these channels that has millions of views and our speakers get from this many views to this many views. What's your email address? Can I send it to you? I was looking at this thing. I was like, how much is this guy going to charge me to do this? This is crazy. So I kind of, eventually I was like, then I get a follow-up message like, would you be interested in doing this? And I thought, like, we've found this video viewers and we want to share this thing to our market. Do we have permission? Can I send you an email? So I just wrote my email address. I didn't say anything. Then this email comes in and it's written like, we've got this many views for this person. And do we have your permission? And I literally replied and I just said, yes. And I hit send. And then I didn't think about it again for months. And then I get this message, this mail, and it's from this dude. And he says, hey, we've got your edit ready. I'd totally forgotten about it. And if you want to approve it, have a look at it. And this is your editor. They will help you and make it, you know, make it your own. And I was like, what? And then I started watching the video and I recognized those yellow titles from those Goalcast videos. They're like quite iconic. I was like, oh my God, it's these guys. And I was so excited, but I was trying to be all cool. Like, yeah, whatever, man. And they have this video. And so I sent back my feedback and they were really, really nice. They made some tweaks. It was just a couple of little changes. But what was cool was that I didn't record that I recorded that talk for the purpose of delivering a good talk. And it was just a talk. They got a section. It was at an event called Suits and Sneakers. It was in South Africa. There was about 4,000 people in the audience. It was like a cool gig. And I was just being myself. I had no idea that one day somebody would use it in a video. So they released it. They edited it down. They did a really good job. They added music, and they kind of figured out what the formula is for these kind of inspirational videos. And inspiration is not my space. Like, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm maybe a provocational speaker, but my job isn't to motivate anyone. It's to hopefully inform and provoke people into making a change. And anyway, so the video went really, really well. And they contacted me last year and said, hey, we'd love to do a follow-up. And I was on a speaking tour in Canada, and they said, well, while you're there, why don't you come into our office? And the second time round, we tried to plot it for success. So we went through stories from my life, and we wrote the whole thing, and I worked with people, and we kind of mapped this whole thing, and we tried too hard, basically, is the long and short of it. So the one is 21 million views on Facebook, the other is 500,000 views on Facebook. And I think the difference was the one.
Yeah, exactly. Bob is saying as well, which is 500,000 views is not too shabby. I mean, it's not 21 million.
For sure, but even then, you know what the weird thing is? Those 21 million views with random disparate audiences that don't know me from a hole in the wall have done basically nothing. All I did notice is some speaking gigs that I had tours, I had a tour in Latin America out on quotes. You know, I sent them one little thing, said, hey, I'm really excited. This has happened. And so some credibility, I found that some quotes were getting signed off quicker. But actually, I've had videos on my own channel that have had like 300 views that have been views by our target demographic, that are our customers, that are on point with what we actually do, which is helping people present better, that have been far, far, far more effective than anything else. Mark, great to see you.
You too, Richard. How you doing?
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic.
Nice to see you. It was great to see Joseph interviewing. I got quite excited when I saw. How you doing?
I get excited when I see Joseph as well. So, you know, you're only human.
I get excited when I see myself too. Wait, Rich, don't go there. Just don't go there. I know you want to go there. Do not go there. But you know, Rich, one of the interesting things, if you just kind of extrapolate in that story, is there are two takeaways that I take from that. One is the 21 million views. It's a proof point, right? It's a headline, and it's something when people are looking for a speaker now. You need that attention. In this case, the thing that breaks through the clutter. And 21 million views on YouTube or on the internet, that's going to get someone's attention. So totally agree. The second thing, I think, I remember in the early days, I was involved a lot with viral videos and viral marketing, or at least in the subject. And you know, the thing is, you can never quite predict it. And the more you try often, and the more you over-engineer and try and create a formula, the less likely it is to be successful. And I think maybe that was one of the things you were talking about, which is there isn't just a formula. Although, you know, in some cases, there are different approaches. I've chosen the slow burn versus the rocket launching and then fizzling out. And that's why I put my head down. I don't look at views. I don't care about them. I care about quality conversations like today was. And that's been my North Star with Corona TV.
Yeah, and I think it's good. So I always talk about the idea of having a victory condition. And we refer to board games a lot in this regard. It's the condition of victory, something that if I haven't done X by X, I failed. I think businesses, funny enough, don't have victory conditions because we don't have a natural end point for them. So we're just we confuse moving forwards with moving towards. And I think even this understanding that this is what I want to have. I want to be consistent. I want to do these things and have your victory condition being something like that. Then the intended, unintended consequence is that your traction and your numbers will go up and things will happen. The Goalcast video was an unintended consequence. The intended one didn't work out the way we wanted to. But we've got a good conversation about it, and I've learned something from it. So the unintended consequence of the relative flop video was that I now understand the importance of not trying too hard and just really, really just saying what you want to say and speaking from the gut.
I would just like to, he has to leave us. I would like to say goodbye to my friend Mark and wish him congratulations on Liverpool winning the league, inevitably winning the league. And there's been a lot of talk about asterisks, and at the end of the day, every other promotion, relegation, or qualification will have an asterisk, but Liverpool deserve to win the league this year. So congratulations. And it's killing me to say this. So just piss off now and go and watch.
Thanks, Bobo. We haven't done it yet. So we've got to win tonight. And anyway, but thank you. Rich, cheers. Great to see you. Take care. Let's keep in touch. Let's catch up. Cheers, Rich. Take care. Hey, cheers, Joe. Cheers,
bye, Mark.
Bye.
So Rich, you called it a victory condition. I call it a spousal ultimatum. It's a little nuance.
Same.
But yeah, I know. And truthfully, with with respect to this show and to this investment, I've said my victory condition is 2 years. I heard it from someone who has experience with starting some kind of a streaming commitment. Steve Garfield is on. He's one of the original. Maybe he was the original vlogger. But I've taken that as my, as my, I would say my reinforcement that I'm going to do this for 2 years and not get distracted, dissuaded, diluted, and just be true to this vision. And then, may the chips fall where they may. That's my condition.
Amazing.
What do you think, Garfield? Is that too long? Should I switch it? Should I reduce it to 1 year? If I listen to everything you say, can I do it in 6 months?
Maybe you could do this as a side thing.
I think it may become the thing. I'm not even sure about the side. What happens when the side thing becomes the thing?
No, that's good. I think you're doing a good job. I wanted to say to Rich, I thoroughly enjoyed this show. One of the best ones, Joseph. I really liked it.
I agree.
I was in the comments saying I could totally relate to the, okay, you guys, you go to the next place. I'm going to head out right now. I'm done, really. that hit a note with me because that's been me. I like the little tool you have to share your links. I went over to there and I clicked on them all to subscribe to you everywhere. And your YouTube link over there has TV at the end of it, which seems to be not the one anymore.
Oh, you know what? I just moved it to a branded channel. Thanks for letting me know. I'll update that as well.
It's Richard.
I'll ping you the actual. Yes, I think it's youtube.com/Richard Mulholland or something.
Right. Okay. Yep.
That's pretty much how my day starts, by the way. It's about 7:30. I open up my laptop, or these days it's more like 6. And I've got like a text from Steve Garfield telling me all the things I didn't do right or that I need to do better.
Listen, Steve, I would love to have a text from you telling me all the things that I haven't done right, because it's really difficult, this space. Everybody needs a pathfinder on anything online. That's the one thing I've realized. You need somebody to call you out because everybody's very keen to tell you how great you were. Oh, that was fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing, buddy. It actually doesn't work out that well. Someone's going to say, keep doing what you're doing, except for that, because that was shit. Don't do that again. And we all need pathfinders. So please, Steve, I'm begging you that if you can commit to giving me 5 wrongs over time.
No, Rich, you can't.
That would be amazing.
You can't steal my Pathfinder. By the way, Steve, I did it. I did it. So I don't want to put it too close because it might screw with the green screen. But I was able to just, as I was going live today, just paste you're watching the Zoom after show, blah, blah, blah. So thank you.
Yeah, Rich, I'll be happy to give you some tips, but I won't take away from the Joseph tips. It'll be an additional tips. That's what I do. This is what I do all day long. Most people appreciate the help, and some people are like, get off of my timeline and stop fact checking my friends. I'm like, okay, but most of the people appreciate the tips.
One of my favorite lines is by a guy called Harry Beckwith. It's probably the book that influenced me. There's a few books that really influenced me in my business career. One is by Howard Mann, Your Business Brickyard. and another is called Selling the Invisible by Harry Beckwith. And one of my favorite lines for it is from it. He says, "Certainty is your ego moving in for the kill." Like anytime you're certain about anything, that's your ego moving in for the kill. And funny enough, Howard Mann and I were writing a book, and you can see I've got FYP tattooed on my arm. And that's only because my friend Derek, the tattoo artist, refused to tattoo "fuck your pride" on my arm. We can always be learning, right? We all of us need to have our pride a little bit fucked every now and then. So to hell with my pride. I would really, really love any thoughts at any time from any of you about anything that could have been done better today, that would have made it maybe a little bit better, or somewhere where we lost you. I really, really genuinely would appreciate any feedback.
Is there
it's quite a minefield.
So I'm searching around for that Goldcast $2 million view video. I can't find it. Am I supposed to find that easily?
Yeah, it's relatively easy. In fact, that's how I searched the numbers now. I searched Goldcast Richard Mulholland, and both the videos came up in DuckDuckGo, and they showed me the Facebook counts for them. So the regret one was 21, and the other one was 450.
So it's probably on Facebook.
Goldcast is on Facebook more than YouTube, but by far.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I looked for it as well because I wanted to put a little screenshot on it as well. But by the way, it's interesting because FYP now means something different in 2020. Does anybody, little quiz, what I think I'm right with what it stands for, what FYP stands for? Should I do the
police?
No. But yes.
That was clever.
But yes. Well, we had PTSD. We had post-traumatic sausage dots. I mean, you can't. We set the bar so low, and then we took it low again. No, actually, I think FYP is the key hashtag on TikTok now, and so I think it means for your page. I think it's FYP as opposed to your personal, or it could be. No, it's FYP. I think it's for your page. And basically, when you hashtag it, that's how things start to bubble up with TikTok now. I'm pretty sure that's right. But I like yours better.
Yeah.
And just technically, when you say ego coming in for the kill, it's to kill you, right? Or to kill somebody else.
Yeah, maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
But when you're certain, it's never a good space.
I'm gonna go and see if that if my kids have allowed me to get back on TikTok. Still not quite sure, but I think in the US, I think this past week, I think TikTok finally came of age, being used as this mobilization platform for all of these teenagers, for the most part, buying up hundreds and hundreds of tickets for a political rally, for a Trump rally, and then not show it.
Sure.
So I think it's interesting. My takeaway there, by the way, was when I did my soliloquy on it was, I think what was so amazing for me, from an ethnographic standpoint and as a strategic planner, which is what I used to be in the agency world, is that we're seeing people who are not even of legal age to vote actually influencing an election and making their vote count, or their potential or their intended vote count. And I think that is mind-blowing as a behavioral shift or as a trend. Just very powerful stuff.
Yeah, they can see the return. They're not putting a vote in and waiting for a count. They're voting and immediately getting the count, which is their own count.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's been very empowering. Not just very empowering for if you're the youth to actually see something that you put in place kind of play out.
Do you think that's going to boomerang, or the security on doing this the next time for whoever holds a convention, a rally, is going to be really interesting? And the idea of Zoom, what was it, Zoom bombing? If they figure that out, or just how to control that is is probably why Obama and Joe Biden, they had a thing last night that I attended. If you gave any amount of money, you could be part of the Obama-Biden thing. And it was live, and there were some questions, but the questions really came from people who were set up in advance to ask those. It wasn't open to everyone, it didn't seem.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely changing tides, right, in the way that we can communicate and access to audience. I'm not sure that it will have I'm not sure that the lasting effect. We actually had to debate with somebody, a few people on this on Twitter, is that the value of it diminishes a lot when we know that it's a farce. So if nobody said that it was a joke, then the world would think that, wow, Donald Trump is losing popularity because people aren't arriving at his event. But by everyone saying, hey, no, we did that, we made that happen, you're kind of letting people know, well, then it's not what we thought it was. It was just, a civil disobedience. And so like does that, the question is, does that diminish from what they did or not? And, would it have been better if just nobody had any idea and it was just looked like an undersold event and it was done on repeat over and over and over again? Would that have had a better effect?
I agree. That hit me immediately. That I think that was a little bit of the fuck your pride, that they went in for the kill. And my immediate reaction was, even from AOC, who I like, was, well, no, you didn't. You just gamed the system. And we don't really know what the real audience would have been, unless I'm missing something, that there wasn't any cost for the ticket. It was just a matter of, of going for free, and any number could have worked. And so there wasn't an overflow. I'm not quite sure I've gotten the real information on this.
No, I don't.
I would do my... Well, so if I was doing this in the future, when people ask me to speak for free at events, I've got a rule. And the rule is very simple, because sometimes they'll say, hey, we want you to speak at your event. Can you book out this time in your calendar? It's going to be really, really great. And then, but it's for free because we're going to give you access to this big audience, which you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. But so I always say to people, and then what happens is, a week before they're like, oh, we didn't sell enough tickets, so we're canceling your booking. So I say to people, no problem. I'll do my talk for free, provided the event happens. If the event doesn't happen, then you pay me my full speaking fee. And then there's this, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you cancel me, then you're paying me because you've booked my time away from my office for that period of time. So I can imagine saying something, this is a free rally, put in your credit card details to join. If you arrive and scan your code at the door, we're not going to take off $100 off your account. But if you don't arrive at the door, we're going to add $100 into the Support Donald Trump Fund. Then by you not arriving, you're paying. So there's this whole negative pool thing. And I think I would maybe try and think of some kind of, I mean, that's maybe adding too much friction, but I think it'd be interesting.
Well, they do something like that with restaurants, especially more upper market restaurants, where you have to confirm a reservation with your credit card, and if you don't show, there is a no-show fee. But I disagree, Jan and Rich, a little bit with you, because I feel that had nobody stepped up or fessed up, they would have figured out where the glitch was and where the gremlin was, and they would have spun it any way they wanted, regardless of whether they figured it out or not. So they would have spun it, the narrative would have been their narrative, as opposed to adjusting or reacting to a different narrative. And I think that they would have fixed it. They would have fixed it. But what doesn't change is the fact that they sent out a text and an email like 30 minutes, an hour before, going, there's still place, get on down, to everybody that had registered. We know this because everyone that had registered received that text. And so many of these old techniques were not working as well as they had. And I think that the one thing I would say, the final thing I would say is, what I've always found is that when you are dealing with a generation that prides itself and almost the DNA of that generation is to continuously hack and improve and change and adapt, and that agility, they'll keep moving. It's the same thing like the hacker culture, or even when we think about the early days of LimeWire and Napster. You know, you cut off one head, another two sprout up. And for me, what it did was, it was less about a political statement against Donald Trump, or, you know, it was more just showing the power of this next generation standing up, stepping up and saying, we're not going to, and I said this in my soliloquy, we're not going to leave it in our grandparents' hands, the same people that are in Congress right now, that are doing such a poor job. We're going to be masters of our own fate. And that was kind of similar to like even what I was talking about today, which is you can lament on the past, you can live in the past, you can live with regrets, or you can just figure it out and move forward. So that's my different point of view, but you know,
I like it.
Who knows who's right?
I think the biggest reward, I think the biggest reward for the TikTok people was the photograph of Trump stepping off from Air Force One helicopter with his tie, the very expensive red tie that he didn't want to get wet, hanging around his neck with his MAGA hat crushed in his hand, looking totally defeated. That's their reward for doing what they did. People were able to go to that event, whether or not tickets were sold or not, right? So the reality is, like 1,800 actual supporters showed up. There were others that, at least this is what I've read, there were others, the rest of the 6,200 were people who were part of the campaign and other folks. The reality is, people could have shown up.
Yeah.
He won that state with 30 points. He has base support there, or did have it. But what's reflected in the 6,200 people that were there is that he couldn't fill the stadium that he was guaranteed to fill. He was so excited and so pumped to think that this was unbelievable. Nothing's ever been done like this before. Well, there you go. So I think that shot of the president stepping off from Air Force One and walking across the White House lawn, just looking completely defeated, was worth every TikTok investment for a ticket.
So I just want to say one thing, which is maybe a little bit of a contrarian, not a contrarian, but a different point of view. You know, Donald Trump's battle or refusal to wear a mask because of how it might make him look, or the perception of it. In a way, you almost, I'm not saying I will ever defend that position, but you can see how dangerous it can be politically for him when he is caught in a moment. And that moment may very well have been exactly what we all saw and the TikTokers saw and you saw, Bob, and quite frankly, what many of his opponents rejoiced about. Or it could have been that the guy was just tired and it was 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, and he took his tie off, which is quite normal, you know, and human to do. So it's just a perspective, you know, as I said, it's like, you know, I want the reality to be exactly what you said, Bob. And quite frankly, that's the one that became the reality. But it could have been very different.
Well, he knew there were reporters standing there waiting to take his picture when he got off from that helicopter. He's a performance artist. He knows what he's doing.
That is true.
That is true. I think because he was screaming backstage, yelling at everybody, and then it was overshadowed by the fact that he, you know, had 6 people who had COVID-19 who were working the event, and then there was another 2 they found, and he got all pissed off about that.
Up to 10 now. So yeah, no, you
don't
make
ever
a good
think
point.
Well, from the outside, U.S. politics, I mean, to a degree, not like South African, but it's so polarized that if, let's say, if this was, you know, 5 years earlier and it was Barack Obama walking off the helicopter and he was like this, and people would have been like, this is a person who doesn't always have to show us the show. He shows us that, you know, what it's like to be just a vulnerable man, you know, who's just tired after a day, and it's so amazing to us that he would be let us into this vulnerable true self. Like, you kind of see what you want to see. And on the flip side, the people at the other side of the political divide they'll be having the same conversation with just a very different lens. They might be saying, you know, this is Donald Trump. He knew the reporters were there, but he didn't care because, you know, this is a guy who's just going to work for us, trying to make America great again. So, you know, people will write the story that they want. It's like one of those cartoons where you get to fill in the captions. Remember those kind of games you would see in magazines and stuff? And this is one of those ones, and everybody writes their own narrative. So it makes it kind of tricky to decide. And even when we talk about this young generation and this hacker generation, we forget that 50% of your population are the youth of the other side, who now want their time to also be hackers themselves and to do this. So it does become tricky to see what will happen. But anyway, I mean, I know you don't want to get political, but it's just.
Oh no, we do. We definitely want to get political.
No, we're live. We're live. We're live
I'm
on
all
Facebook.
for it. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
We might get flagged for incendiary statements. Well, I tell you what I am going to do is I'm going to bring it back to Rich and what he does for a living, because and then I'm going to, as I always say, regretfully, this actually went on longer than it should, because I try and keep this to about 30 minutes. But this was such an amazing conversation. You know, Rich, I guess what we ended up talking about was people subjectively spinning or interpreting, or maybe interpreting their own narrative, right? In terms of introspection. I think the same is clearly true with respect to a presentation, in terms of what your intent was with the presentation, what you hoped would be communicated versus ultimately what is internalized and taken away. So maybe if you want to just kind of a final nugget on how to make sure that what people take away is exactly what you, the presenter, wanted them to take away.
So we have a reverse order to this. The way that you deliver your presentation is the exact opposite way that you prepare your presentation. So the way you deliver a presentation for us, and I've got like I'll share a link with you now, a nice Trello board set up that you can use for free. And it's actually got subject matter from my book on presenting in it that I've pasted there, so you can use it if you ever have to build a presentation. The link is, it's like, so my first book was called Legacide, Legacide, but it's another one of those city URLs. So legaci.de/Trello. And that's a link to the Trello board. So that for building a presentation. But the thinking for us, the structure of a presentation structure that I believe could work for any presentation you'll ever give, and you can play with it, but it will work, is step number one, you have to give your audience a reason to care. So you've got to buy their attention before you can sell them any ideas, right? You know, when we're teaching people to sell, we say you don't have to sell the features and benefits of the ambulance. You just have to sell the accident. If you sell the accident, the ambulance sells itself. So step number one, give them a reason to care. Step number two, give them a reason to believe. So now I care about problem A. Why then should I trust you? And not why should I trust you generally, why should I trust you specifically to offer the solution to the problem you've just framed for me? That's what we always get wrong. We try to talk about all the things we have instead of the one thing. Step number three is you got to tell them what they need to know. And step number four is the one we always forget, is you got to tell them what we need to do, what they need to do. So you got to leave them with an instruction that what I want you to do is X. So when you're writing a presentation, when you're trying to work out your narrative, you got to start from the other side. And you got to say to yourself, well, what do I need them to do? If I leave the stage and they haven't done X, I've failed. What is X? And X shouldn't be lofty. X should be the easiest thing that they can do in the next 5 minutes to set the chain reaction. Nobody's going to buy the big job or sell the car at the end of a presentation. You may just sell the appointment. So what do I need them to do? Then it's what are the 3 or 4 things? So you go one step back. What are the 3 or 4 things I need to tell them that will make them think, this is a good decision to make? Then I would have to go one step back and say, what credibility do I need to have in order to deliver that information in their mind? And then the final step in your preparation is, why should they give a shit in the first place? Why should anybody care about any of this stuff enough to invest their attention with me for the next 45 minutes? And if you cannot solve the first part, the rest of it doesn't matter. And if you don't have the last part dialed in, none of it will matter, because you're not going to change anything. You'll be the person that was remembered because you were funny, or because you dropped the F-bomb, or because you said something and you changed nothing. And I learned all of that the hard way. The amount of time people would come out to me and say, I really enjoyed your talk. It was so funny. Thank you so much. You're that guy who swore a lot, whatever the case may be. And then they, at the end of the whole thing, they just didn't really remember much about what I said. The Preza Rock Gods is not, let me just show. So that's not, Twitter would be /MSNG.
That was just an additional help that I'm giving you on something else.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Yes.
But the thing that the link that you gave us, I can't figure it out.
Can you put it on the chat?
Is that
I'm doing it now.
I was thinking there's no way that Steve Garfield hasn't repeated that URL if it's correct.
I'll tell you what it was. So
I tried it like 6 times.
The book that I wrote is called Legicide, and I wanted to refer to lots of things in this. So it's legicide.com. I wanted to refer to, like, sometimes I'd write something and I'd want you to go to a website. Instead of writing the whole long URL, I made these short URLs.
You can always send it to me when you find it, and then I'll share it with the group.
No, there it is there.
Oh.
So that's the link to the Trello board. So I made a short URL so that if I was referring to anything in the book, I could just send them to legicide/coffins, legicide/whatever. And so I've just been using that, but we're actually doing a missing link one now. We found that there's a WTF top level domain. I don't know if you know that. I only found out this week. So we've got mlink.wtf, and then that's going to be our short URL. So there we go.
I mean, you know, Jan's like, what? So I typed it down correctly, I might add. I just didn't post it in here.
Hey, Rich, could you
Jan,
yeah,
it's my son's birthday party going on right now.
Oh, sorry about that.
So ask really quickly, and then I have to shut it down.
Could you just go over that in reverse order again, or look at mine and edit it? I tried to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jen, you do know that we now record the Zoom after show, and it will be on YouTube by the end of today. And in fact, what I'm going to do for you, because you are one of my most loyal after show followers, I will cut that. I will go in and find the exact moment for you, and I will send you a video, a file, and it will say, and the name of the file will be for Jan Zlotnick. I will do that for you.
I'm going to paste it very quickly. In the last 2 seconds. Yep.
To care, to believe.
So while we're all just
we always
the only time I was ever backstage at a concert was for a Hall & Oates Big Bam Boom tour back in the, I think it was the 80s, but I don't remember a lot of the 80s. So, and so I was on tour with them for that tour, and that lifestyle would almost killed me, but not quite, and it sure was fun. So
it was the best training ground for work ethic that I ever could have had. You just, failure is not an option. There will be a show. It was amazing. It was the best after school, best college.
So
happy birthday to Jack.
Guys, besides happy birthday to Jack, in fact, everybody on the count of 3, let's wish Jack happy birthday. 1, 2, hold on. Let's go into 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday,
Jack.
Happy birthday, Jack.
And second of all, this is going in his bar mitzvah montage. And second of all, I am going to stand up. Yeah, exactly. Muzzles, my darling. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to give a Rich standing ovation.
Seriously. Great job.
Thank you so much.
First, maybe standing ovation. I mean, it just seemed fitting considering we're talking about speaking and presenting, etc. Very gracious, very generous, and just a pleasure to get to know.
Thanks, and likewise. I'm looking forward to popping back into the after party with you guys on other episodes. So I'm hoping to see you all here in the seats soon.
That's what I always end up by saying, and for people watching on Facebook, which is, there are 2 people on right now. They're lurking. They haven't decloaked. And so you can come in here, you can look, you can listen, you can type. It is very intimate. And I appreciate it, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you are in the Zoom room right now. And Rich, you are welcome back anytime. You're always welcome here.
Thanks for having me. It was so good chatting to everybody. Al, thanks for setting it up. And take
Cool,
care, guys.
nice to see you.
Come visit down in South Africa. If you're down here, be sure to come join me.
Where do you live, Rich?
Cape Town.